Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups, Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today.
You got it, Elizabeth.
All right. And Steve, welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. How are you doing today?
Excellent. It's a Friday. My best day of the week, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Recording on Fridays is fun. So this is going to be an evergreen episode. However, yes. And I'm talking to you from the beautiful mountains of Virginia. I believe you are in New Jersey.
Yes, an undisclosed location in central New Jersey. I have 3 or 4 direct reports who've tried to stage several coup attempts, so I try not to let people know exactly where I am.
Right. Agreed. So I'm holding here the ROI of LOL, and our audience may remember Clayton spoke with me in February. He's coming to Roanoke for a workshop for his master class, and you are part of, if not the inspiration, probably for where that workshop came from. I can't put words in his mouth, but you were the co-author of the ROI of LOL, and as you know, I just purchased my first bulk order. That's also available. You can buy the book in bulk for your business at roilol.com. And so on the back of the cover here, I see here this lovely profile photo. Steve Cody is the founder and CEO of Peppercomm, a Reuter Finn company and a fully integrated strategic communications firm headquartered in New York City. In that role, he's responsible for everything from implementing strategy and counseling clients to leading business development and bringing new products and services to the market. In short, he does everything but clean windows.
I just don't get along with Windows. We never had that connection. So yeah,
well,
that's
so
me.
this is a new book, but would you say that's still true? You sure? Are you maybe you're not cleaning windows yet?
I'm actually taking an online course in HVAC repair. So, I hope to, my next career might be repairing air conditioning and doing some duct work. And so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And or becoming a toll booth operator on the Garden State Parkway. I think that could be really cool.
What I want to be when I grow up.
Exactly.
So I would excited to have you here today, and a little bit nervous here because if you remember last time I talked to you, when we was the first time that we actually met, but I have been waiting to meet you for a long time, even before I knew who you were. The nature of this book introduced me to you, and then I got interested in the nature of your work by following Peppercomm and all of the work that you're doing in Peppercomm, and specifically the work that you personally put into your content, sharing with your audience the skills that you embody every day as a leader, and your whole team has to follow your lead. So that's fascinating to watch. But before I get into some business questions, really, I would like to ask you to entertain me with how you met Clayton Fletcher, because I've heard you talk about this before. I've listened to several interviews of yours. But would you please entertain me with that story here in person today?
I'll do my best, and usually it works better with a 2-drink minimum, Elizabeth. But
Right.
I like to say that I've been going through a midlife crisis since I was a sophomore in high school, which is which is pretty true, actually. So I've always looked to try something new, different, etc. And I just happened to spot a billboard in New York City saying, you can become a stand-up comedian in 5 days, study at the American Comedy Institute. So I checked it out a little bit. It's a 5-night course, 4 nights, a couple of professional comedians walk you through the different types of comedy. They ask you to talk about things that get you upset. You put together a script, they edit it, you perform it in front of your other classmates, if you will. And I was taking this course alongside of New York City policemen, taxi cab drivers, retired lawyers, high school students. So every slice of life was in that group. And then on the fifth night, you actually perform 5 minutes of comedy at a club called Stand Up New York. And so, the anxiety leading up to that was just off the charts. It was just the worst day of my life. And I got up on stage and I actually got through the 5 minutes and the show ended. And I got tepid response, which is not unusual. But I walked outside and I just said, boy, I'm so glad that's over. And I got a tap on the shoulder. And it was Clayton Fletcher, who had not been part of the training. And he said, I thought you weren't half bad. I have my own show, the Greenwich Village Comedy Club. Would you like to perform next Friday night? And I thought, wow, this is a professional comedian, and he thinks I'm actually pretty good. So, so I was psyched. I thought, I'll be on Letterman within 6 or 7 months. And I performed with him that next Friday night. He invited me back again and again and again. And it's like a couple of other things in my life that I just immediately fell in love with. Long distance running was one, ice, alpine, and rock climbing is another. And stand-up comedy was just an amazing high for me. So for 2 years in a row, Clayton allowed me to perform at all of his shows. And I learned two things at the end of those 2 years. A, I would never make it as a professional comedian. And B, I was learning so many skills as a result of my stand-up performing that I was becoming a better business person, a better leader, a better communicator, a better listener. And I thought, wow, these skills are transferable to the workplace. So I asked Clayton to come to one of our management meetings, and I just sprung it on my management team. And I said, you all know what I've been doing the last 2 years with stand-up comedy, and it's made a dramatic difference in my leadership, my all the things I talked about. I'd like Clayton to train each of you in stand-up comedy, and if looks could kill, you and I would not be speaking right now. But they went through it, and at the end of it, they said, we must roll this out to the entire agency. And we did. And for the past 15 years, we have been training our employees in stand-up and improvisational comedy. And for the last 8 or 9 years, we've been offering it to our clients and to other companies that are not our clients. And we have trained, huge corporations in the financial services sector, consumer sector, all of whom have different challenges. They could be generational gaps. They could be people working in silos. They could be people, and this has really happened in the last couple of years, trying to cope with anxiety, stress, depression, and with the upcoming election, there's just so much unease, and there's so much um, depression and worry that if we can bring that training into an organization and help that organization find common ground and learn new things about each other and learn to laugh in the right way and have a leader who is open to demonstrating her vulnerability, her empathy. It makes a huge change in the dynamic of that group. And sometimes the groups are 10 or 15 people. Sometimes, we do it in front of 500 people. It really depends. And we've done it for sales groups. We've done it for communications teams, marketing teams, HR teams, technology teams. It doesn't matter. They all have different challenges, and we can break down barriers and get them to work together. It's just been a huge differentiator for us. We work with very serious companies where comedy is not appropriate, But what you learn in stand-up comedy is coming up with something unexpected. The punchline is always the unexpected. So if we're working for very serious companies and they want an article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, we have to think, what can we say that's unexpected that the reporter will respond to and write an article, positive article about our client. So all of those skills are applicable to everything we do as a public relations and communications firm.
Okay. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and Walker Consulting Workshops. Join me live on October 18th for the Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher. Now, I'm bringing this ad to you today on purpose because you will see an e-blast from the Jefferson Center for the Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher. That's October 18th in the Fosdeck Hall. It is a full day seminar and I'm hosting. If you would like a personal invite, please DM me on LinkedIn. You can also email me at dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. So today I am coming to you from my home studio in Floyd, Virginia, telling you remember to sign up for the Jefferson Center's email subscription list if you haven't already, and you will receive a reminder in your inbox, a dedicated email about the power of laughter. And it says, Elizabeth Walker presents the Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher. Learn from an international professional stand-up comedian what all business people should know. What do comedians do on stage every night? How do we read the room? How do we learn what our audience is connecting with us around? And how can you learn how to do that in your everyday conversations, build rapport with your customers and employees? So this is an event that is targeted for executives and team leaders who speak. If you are in the Roanoke Valley or surrounding area, October 18th starts at 11 a.m. You can reserve your seats right now at the Jefferson Center box office. Pick up your copy of the ROI of LOL. That's the book that Clayton's workshop is centered around. So the co-author is Steve Cody. You can find both Clayton Fletcher and Steve Cody on LinkedIn. So my name's Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and Walker Consulting Workshops. Please join me on October 18th and contact me now. I can help you reserve your seat or at the box office at the Jefferson Center in Roanoke, Virginia. Okay, well, that it takes a very deep and introspective brain, mind, heart, really, to go all the way from this comedy training helped me in my interpersonal skills to, okay, this is what you do to be successful in the news, is do something unexpected and make it positively receptive. Interview over. That's all we needed to know, right?
Not quite. The other thing is we have never forced any employee to go through the stand-up or improvisational training. But the peer pressure is such that they all say, okay, well, I'll do it. And then when they come back, because we will do the training at a comedy club in Manhattan for our employees. And we also tie it in, as you know, to our charitable fundraising. Every year, we ask our employees to pick a different charity, and I MC the show very poorly, and 11 or 12 of my coworkers will do 5 or 6 minutes of stand-up material, and Clayton will headline it. And typically, we raise between $5,000 and $10,000 in a single, 90-minute session. For Autism Speaks, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It's a different charity every year. So it really, really drives our people, really doubles down on our purpose in terms of why we're here, how we're trying to do more for to enhance the greater good. So it's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk. That's very important to us. And it's just created a culture that's been incredible. Knock on wood, we just don't lose people. We're in an industry where the public relations agency world annual turnover is 25 to 30%. Ours has been under 10%. And if people leave, they leave to do something completely different, like become a teacher or what they want to just take a year off and see the world or whatever. But we don't lose people to competitors or going in-house or whatever. It's just it works for us. It's not appropriate for every workplace. But it's just been a huge differentiator for us, and especially in attracting talent and also attracting clients. Clients want organizations that, have deep expertise, but they also want to enjoy the company, of the agency. So it's been a big differentiator for us in new business presentations where we have a very serious presentation, but we find ways to inject humor, and make the prospective clients laugh in unexpected ways. And just this past week, at the end of one of our presentations, the chief marketing officer said, not only was your presentation the most creative, but I've never had more fun. I've never had more fun listening to a PR firm, pitch a campaign. So, that's those little nuances, those little subtleties can make a huge difference in terms of winning business, attracting talent, keeping talent, and really, again, trying to do the right thing. And from a leadership standpoint, my employees have seen me fail and make so many mistakes, in front of them, in front of prospects, in front of clients. I own all of those mistakes. I really believe self-deprecating humor is a tool that every leader should have in her or his arsenal. I think it's just so powerful. If you can, laugh at your own mistakes, share those mistakes, share what you learned from those mistakes, it just knocks down the walls and the silos. And, a 21 or a 22-year-old Peppercomm employee feels very comfortable walking up to me and saying, "Hey, why did you do this?" Or "Have you ever thought about doing that?" There's no wall, which is just a phenomenal experience. It's just a phenomenal experience.
Well, so your employees and your team are probably used to using yes and every day.
Yes, and they certainly do. As a matter of fact, you would not believe all the yes ending on our Teams channels. Somebody will post some comment and immediately, yes, and we should think about this, and yes, and we should think about that. And so yes, and which, as you know, and I'm guessing some of your viewers or listeners would know, that's one of the basic improvisational bits, if you will, or training sessions. You start with an idea, and it's like an idea. Well, why don't we come up with a new version of this water bottle? Yes, but that's going to cost a lot of time. Yes, but that's a lot of money. Yes, but so instead of yes, but we say yes, and maybe it's not a new bottle, but maybe it's a new packaging that we should be looking at. Yes, and speaking of packaging, I looked at one of our competitors, and their packaging is world class. I think we have to think of so you can really build on an idea. So instead of shutting down creativity and innovation, that yes and mindset really serves as a catalyst.
Yeah, it's absolutely changes everything. It's powerful in and of itself. No notes or other tasks required. Just yes and.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we just trained a group of I would say mid-level executives at a financial institution, and their problem was they were all women. This was a group of about 20 women, and it wasn't Clayton. It was actually just myself and one of my executives, because they weren't so much interested in comedy. They were more interested in learning how to network in a male-dominated environment.
Okay.
So, so we used the yes and exercise to explain to them, if they're in a group of alpha males and the alpha males are talking about football, and somebody says, "Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are really something." You could step right in and say, "Yes, and I was born and raised in Kansas City," or "Yes, and I did a cross country trip after college, and we stopped in Kansas City, and great barbecues, great jazz." So we taught them how to listen and to use the yes and exercise to divert the conversation, the alpha male conversation, and inject themselves as a peer in that conversation. And boy, talk about rave reviews before and after. They just totally got it. And 2 weeks later, the head of that department said they just went to a couple of different networking sessions, and they all said they used yes and they really feel much more comfortable with their male colleagues. So a very different assignment, Elizabeth, but improv and stand up can really work to solve so many different problems or challenges.
Absolutely. That's fascinating. I should not be surprised.
Yeah. Financial services sector, as you know, is still very, very male dominated. So, how do really smart, intelligent women who feel a little bit intimidated by that, how do they break through? How do they position themselves as a peer?
So that's one of the magic things that Clayton points out about self-deprecating humor is he tries to explain that we want to come to the audience with a shared problem. And so immediately putting yourself into a problem that you want to share, um, you can use, it seems like you have figured out at work in your day-to-day exchanges that balance of self-deprecating humor and it being a shared experience with the other person, right? Because some comedian, if we think about comedy just on stage or YouTube or Comedy Central or what have you, some people go really far with the self-deprecation and it's a turn off for me, but there's an art to it, and there's an art to it, right?
Mhm. Yeah, very much so. And it's a great way in which to immediately connect with the audience. So you don't want to and Clayton said this many times, you don't want to go up on stage and say, I'm worth about $1 billion and I've got a couple of yachts, in the Mediterranean, and nobody can relate to that. But if you go up there and you say, I'm having a real problem. I just got married, and we weren't living together before we were married, and boy, the last 6 months I haven't slept one wink because my partner snores, and it just keeps me awake. How many of you have problems with partners who snore? And immediately they're connecting, and everybody's got some similar situation. So what we find in the training is that if you go up there and talk about a problem or a challenge or an issue, somebody in that audience or most of that audience can relate to you immediately and say, "Oh yeah, that same thing happened to me." So you want to be relatable, but you also want to share what happened and come up with some kind of a funny response or an unexpected punchline. So my dad lived to be 98, and I used to talk about him all the time, and I would say, my dad just turned 95 and he was diagnosed with glaucoma. And as you might expect, he was thrilled. He was thrilled because in New Jersey, medical marijuana is legal, but there's only one problem. Supply has not caught up with demand. So my daughter has become my dad's connection. And it always killed. It always, because everyone's trying to figure out this was before marijuana was legalized in New York
Yeah.
City, New Jersey. So that kind of relatable stuff. Everybody's got, an elder care story or, a kid's story. So anytime you can relate, or, commuting, traveling, all the hassles that are out there. Pick a hassle, talk about it, come up with something unexpected, and the audience will fall in love with you.
Calling all two-wheel enthusiasts, get ready to rev up your earbuds with Pin the Gas Podcast, the ultimate motorcycle racing podcast, hosted by Chris Simcoe, one of our very own excellent leaders here in Roanoke, Virginia. With expert analysis, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive writer interviews, whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer, you'll gain insights that will transform how you watch and understand motorcycle racing. That's Pin the Gas Podcast.
Right. And my first response when you just told that joke, that setup was I'm going to be looking around for who else is next to me is going to laugh at this. That's a telling thing in a room.
It is, and that's what I learned in the 2 years that I was performing 2 or 3 nights a week. I was met a lot of my material was met with either silence or negative, somebody actually threw a bottle, missed me, but I used to do this material about growing up as a Catholic school student and an altar boy, and a couple of times I struck a nerve and people got very angry at me. So you learn,
Whoa.
yeah, you learn so many skills. You learn immediately. If you bring material to a conversation or a meeting with a client, and I can now immediately sense if I've said something just a little bit off, so I can
Mhm.
immediately, redirect or make fun of myself for saying something that inane. So that training is just invaluable. And learning how to cope and deal with silence is now a powerful weapon for me. I used to freak out in my first couple of years of doing comedy when my material was met with complete silence from the audience. And Clayton taught me a few things, I could use to deal with that. And now in new business, if I say something and there's complete silence, I'll say, I know why you're all quiet right now. You're thinking, that idea Steve just shared is so cool. How do I tell my boss about it? How do we get that? You loved that idea. So they immediately smile, they look up. So I redirect the conversation and I use that silence to my advantage.
I was I was hoping you were going to bring that up. If you didn't, I was going to ask you about explain silence. It's so scary for some people. It's 12:30. Are we okay for a couple more minutes?
Of course.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, silence is can be scary, and the other day you said that was something you learned how to use. And so this brings me to the next kind of question I had is how you have used. Okay, so you have some components of comedy, right? One of them is learning yes and then there's some more skilled study with the breakdown of learning sketch and the breakdown of learning the art of improv, and that's a little bit more technical. However, what you did say, for purposes of this interview that you could share right now is you said in the book I pointed out a page to you the other day that I had found where you specifically say improv comes up for you. Your training improv works in your favor, maybe unexpectedly, right? When you're in a meeting with a potential client, those skills kind of, come to your service, if you will, when you're listening for words or listening for a solution that you can offer that is, in fact, an improv situation with your potential customer. Did I hear that?
Absolutely correct. You cannot predict what will happen in a meeting, so it can go in any sort of direction. And the more you study improv and practice improv, the more you're able to pivot. I don't like that word, but pivot
Okay.
to engage in that conversation that you didn't expect. And it just happens so often. And that redirect can be, positive or negative, but with the improv skills are such that there are so many different improv programs that we put both our employees and our clients through. And a lot of them are intended to force you to put yourself in your audience's shoes. So, for example, we do one exercise called time travel, where we ask people to pair up, person A and person B, and ask person A to describe an iPhone to person B. And then we ask person B, okay, it's now the year 1950. So how do you communicate what an iPhone is to your partner? But it's 1950, and so she's only used to going to the movies, listening to radio. Maybe she's got a TV, she reads newspapers. So how do you explain an iPhone to her? And then we travel back to medieval times, we travel back to caveman times, and it's so useful in terms of putting yourself and putting your head into the audience's shoes. How do you explain something like this? So it's a great skill for communicators because it's our job to always think about, well, what does the Gen Z really want to hear? How do I connect with the millennial? How do I put myself in the shoes of a baby boomer? So all of these skills are immediately transferable to communications in any way, shape, or form, internal, external, you name it, one to one, one to many. They're immediately transferable.
Yes. Yes, that is one of the things that I had highlighted with Clayton in our conversation around the book, is how you can pick this book up and go right into a room with a couple of people and start just playing some improv games.
Yeah, I mean, the last third of the book is all about doing it yourself. So, we don't expect a bunch of companies to immediately hire us based upon the book, but we do hope that someone who's with, maybe just started his or her own company, or, works in a department of a larger company and wants to just try this stuff out. We give them a roadmap of how to do both stand-up and improv. So I'd like to think that the book is not at all about us and, how comedy and humor have transformed us and my company, but it's well, hopefully it's also a how-to, and a gift in a way to other companies and other individuals to make them understand or help them understand how laughter and humor can really improve, their health and well-being, their company's health and well-being, their colleagues' health and well-being. So I'd like to think we're making something of a contribution with the book.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I said before, and I'll repeat it for this recording, that it was one of the first books that I picked up in a long time that I read cover to cover within 24 hours. And Clayton's response was, "Well, it is meant to be an easy read," and I appreciate why he said that, or that he said that. But okay, sure, I was already interested in the book, but it's fun, and the examples that you give are there's stories. Everything is a story, and you are going deeper into the experiences of how, as you're talking now to me, you can take this deeper into how your team develops content for their customers and their customers and their customers and their customers and their customers. And one of the things that stood out to me, just purely from marketing and advertising, what can I get out of this, is watching some of the biggest, most famous commercials on television, right? What have they done that has made them consistently bring you back to the commercial? And one of those things that you guys say in the book is using what comedians do as a callback that helps your audience feel like it makes your audience a part of the joke. Right. So a really good commercial can do that in a few seconds. Sketched comedy writing is how they're doing this.
Right. I think for me, the textbook example of what you're talking about, and personally my favorite campaign, is the Allstate Mayhem character. The guy who plays the Mayhem character is a comedian, and
Okay.
and the commercials have him just creating mayhem, and saying, boy, if you had Allstate insurance you wouldn't have to worry about this. So there's an immediate connection between the laughter and selling the product. And I think it's just absolutely brilliant. And it's a callback because the Mayhem character is always doing something bizarre, but it's all about calling back to the need to protect your home, your car, etc., with Allstate insurance. So it immediately connects, but it connects in such a smart and unexpected way. Brilliant campaign.
Great. So now I'm in the inside joke. I'm in on the joke.
That's exactly it. You're looking forward to seeing what's Mayhem going to do next. So it's not Allstate. It's like, what's Mayhem going to do next? And by the way, when I do have a purchasing decision, I'm going to consider Allstate. Maybe I wouldn't have considered Allstate before, but I'm so connected because of the callback. They're now in my consideration set. And that's what it's all about, getting into the consideration set. How can you get your product, service, company into the consideration set? And humor is a great way, and callbacks are a great way to be considered the next time someone's going to think about buying, a bottle of water or lease a car or whatever it is. Getting into that consideration set, That's what marketers want.
Okay, that's new vocabulary for me. So I'm writing that down, getting into the consideration set. Well, switching gears a little bit, I'm getting gold with you here, so I might have to skip over one or two of my original questions to not take up all of the recording time here, because um you had said a couple of things to me before in our conversation that I had written down. I know I keep saying that. I'm a note taker. Thank you for being patient with me.
Not at all.
So I've heard you talk about the yes and. We've talked about the skills of improv and bringing your audience in on the joke with you. Two big important skills that come through the book and that I've asked you to talk to me about. Now, team building and bonding with your team. You had said that you have a love of climbing, and I don't know anything about climbing. You know, it is funny though, as I had a conversation with my sister after you and I talked a few weeks ago for the first time, and she was talking to me about a friend of hers that does extreme sports, and I said, "You know what, Molly? I just realized that I just got off the phone with this guy, Steve Cody, and he is this a climber." And now I know somebody who is a climber, because I was telling her, isn't that crazy? There are people out here that do awesome things like that. I've never met anybody like that. Oh, actually, I just met this guy today.
Well, I actually used the climbing in some of my stand-up material. My son and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro together. So I said, I just had an amazing experience. We came back from Tanzania. We climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. We spent 5 nights together climbing up that mountain inside a tent. Yeah, the sensory overload was unbelievable. We just experienced everything together, the good, the bad, and a lot of ugly. And we've been back a month and we haven't spoken since. Which immediately gets a smile or a laugh because you don't expect that. But we got so fed up with each other, even though we adore each other, we didn't want anything to do with one another for a full month. I mean, that's a true story. And those are the best stories to bring up on stage. The true stories that have kind of an unexpected twist to them.
Well, and they're probably the types of relationships that you might be busy for a year, and when you get back together, it'll be like nothing changed.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
So
Go
okay,
ahead.
I'm sorry, keep going.
No. You go.
Okay, so still on climbing though. So
Yeah.
where I was going with that is what you did tell me about one of the things that you love about climbing is that with your team, your goal is to get up the mountain and back down the mountain together safely. So this is a common thread for you as a leader in this, what, 2 times that I've had the pleasure to be able to speak with you, and your love of improv and seeing the value of that, and in putting that into your personal life and into your work life is something that I think you're studying within yourself and the people in your life, right? Is this, how do teams thrive together? So that's
Yes.
where I'm seeing some common things happening for you.
Yeah, no, that's very astute. The learning lessons from climbing is that it's not about who's fastest, who's strongest, who's the most adept. It's very much a support group. If somebody's a little bit weaker, somebody's a little bit struggling a little bit, we all just slow down a little bit to make sure that he's comfortable, she's comfortable. We want to summit together. We want to enjoy our time together. We want to get down safely. So we really look after each other. And that's transferable to the workplace as well. If you're looking after each other and not competing against each other and not trying to outshine each other, it's a very valuable cultural, change or shift, if you will. To have that mindset as an organization is just it's incredible. So, that's the other thing that we try to impart, to when we do the training, that you're in this together. You're sharing a moment, you're sharing an experience within an organization. You can try to compete with each other. You can try to keep information to yourself, but who really benefits from that? Maybe you might benefit from that short term, but others suffer from that. So if you can't think of yourself as part of a team, maybe this organization, I wouldn't say this to a client, but maybe this organization isn't right for you. So, you want to work, I think most people now want to work in an organization where there is that support group, where you do know you're in a safe place, where there isn't this, us versus them mentality. So climbing, boy, the lessons from climbing are so immediately transferable to the workplace, as obviously it's a comedy is as well. So the climbing and comedy worked beautifully for me.
So when can I see you on stage next?
We're training a group of new employees and a few client employees in New York. I think it's July 27th, and Clayton and I will be performing that night, and we'll have some of the Peppercomm employees performing that night as well at the West Side Comedy Club in Manhattan. So that's my next time on stage. But be honest with you, Elizabeth, this has worked so well that I'm doing more performing and training with clients now than I am doing stand up at New York City clubs. So it's it's such a weird dynamic. It went from being this guy who was just struggling, trying to figure out stand up, and now companies are paying us a serious amount of money to train their employees in stand up and improv. So that's where I do most of my performing, actually. I try out my new bits in front of the client organizations just to show them, well, this is observational humor, this is anecdotal humor, this is what act out is all about. Here's how you can inject improv into stand up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty cool. I'm actually
Uh,
Clayton and I are actually doing a gig with the American Supply Association in Philadelphia. I think it's July 31st. And the American Supply Association basically are a bunch of plumbers and mechanics and people like that. And there are like 1,000 of them. And Clayton and I are going to try to train them in stand up and improv. So we have to figure out, we have to bone up on our monkey wrenches and our Phillips screwdrivers. We have to put on our hard hats and really think through how do we break through and connect with plumbers. So never done the plumber, never gone that route before.
okay, so what's the equivalent of a plumber's carabiner?
That's a great point. So, probably that tool belt that they wear, that when
Yeah.
that when they squat down, unfortunately, they squat down a little bit too far, and the jeans go down towards towards the upper thighs, or yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
I saw
there's
that on a Father's Day card yesterday.
there you go, there you go. So it would be the toolkit, that's for sure.
Okay, what is one thing in your day-to-day tasks that you could outsource, right? It might be scheduling, it might be writing something in your in your cal, it might be an email that is an assistant could do, but you don't outsource that because you like doing it yourself.
Yeah, I would say pretty much, all of the things that I write. The only help that I need, I mean, I need a lot of help, but the only help I need in terms of my day-to-day work is my schedule, because it's so ridiculous. I feel like I'm inside a video game sometimes because I have so many different, and it's a good problem to have, but I have so many requests, both within my company. I'm on a bunch of different industry boards, and I also mentor a bunch of kids at different colleges.
Oh,
So
cool.
so I have so many people asking, can we do the meeting now? Can we do a meeting there? Can you introduce me to X? Can you introduce me to Y? So it's having an assistant to help me sort through that is really important to my sanity, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
So So again, that's a great problem to have. I like to help people. My wife keeps telling me, learn how to say no. And
Okay.
I tell her, I just, if somebody asks me to help, I say yes. It's just the way I'm cut out, and that's why I need the assistance on the calendar and the scheduling. That's my big business challenge, if you will.
That's fair. That's totally fair. What have I forgotten to ask you about that we need to tell our listeners today?
I think we've touched on it, but sadly, things in our world are just getting worse. So I think humor, finding humor in your day-to-day existence is fundamental to your mental and emotional and physical health and well-being. So this is not just some kind of crazy, once a year thing you do at a retreat. You really do need to figure out a way to laugh through the madness because we are in a world of hurt right now. And the more we can help each other smile or laugh and learn how to smile and laugh about our own mistakes and our own foibles and our own faults, I think we'll all benefit from that. And I think that's how we're going to get through this. I think it's I think it's probably the only way we have to find common ground. We have to find things that we can all laugh at, because otherwise we'll tear ourselves apart.
Thank you so much, Steve, for coming to this podcast recording today. I am tickled pink. And when I get off the recording here, I'm going to make a bunch of phone calls and tell everybody who I talked to today. So I couldn't tell them before the recording, so I didn't jinx myself.
Fair enough. And if I could just end with a plug, if you
Please.
want to know more about the book, www.roilol.com. That will answer any and all questions. And if you'd like to, for whatever reason, I wouldn't know why, but if you'd like to follow me on LinkedIn, it's Steven, Steven, Cody. And you'll see my little photograph of me climbing on, I think, the Matterhorn or someplace in the Alps. But that's all I can say. That's it for my end, Elizabeth.
Okay, see you in July on stage.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.